Well, hopefully this process and educating you about the 8 steps and the process to go through, and then actually working on it, will help you, all of you. It's certainly been an eye-opener for me. So before we get into the 8 steps, how many of you, I know, how many of you know about Simon Sinek and have at least watched his TED Talk on the Golden Circle? Okay, Timmy has, but not Laurel and Ree. Okay, great. So this is based on the premise of he's got a 3-part leadership series. The first book is called Start With Why. And the third book, which is what this actual webinar is based on, is the one on finding your why, find your why. And it's a guide to how you can go about that process. But the thing that what Simon Sinek has come up with in the course of all of his research and working with other corporations as a consultant and coach is that people don't buy what you do or how you do it. They actually buy the why of why you do it. Now, we've been talking about this, in business, we talk about this is your differentiating factor, right? This is what makes you different from other similar consultants. But it actually goes deeper than that, because this is actually the cause, the purpose, it's the compelling reason that you exist. And we all have this. We developed it, actually, they say, starting in, as a teenager. That's when our true purpose, our true purpose kind of evolved. And the experiences that we've had, the events and the people in our lives are all experiences and activities and events and people who've shaped who we are today when we're operating at what Sinek calls your natural best. So the why is the most difficult part to articulate, because this is the feeling that you have when everything's going smoothly, when you just finished something and you're going, wow, that was so satisfying. You feel fulfilled. You've got this excitement and satisfaction about that. What you've got to be able to do is analyze, what was it that happened that gave you those feelings? The why actually comes from the part of the brain called the limbic part that has no words. That's your feeling part of the brain. And so that's why it's so hard to articulate in a very simple phrase, a clear and concise statement, because there are no words, it's just feelings. And how do you describe the feeling, right? So when you meet people and you talk about your business, what we naturally gravitate to is what we do and how we do it, because those are easy to describe. But why we do that is the challenge. And that's what finding your why is really all about. And that's what the eight steps are about. I'm just going to give a real brief example of a baker, that something that I made up based on what I've read from Simon Sinek. These are 2 advertising campaigns, right? So here's a baker that and we got lots of bakeries in all these different communities. And how do you choose which baker to go to, right? You go to the one in the grocery store, or you go to a bakery near you because it's within driving distance or something. All of them have basically the same things: breads and pastries and coffee and tea and maybe sandwiches. But what makes one different from the other? So here's an ad, a sample ad. We make artisan breads and pastries using only the freshest ingredients, handcrafted by our professional bakers. Come taste the difference. Does that excite you about going to that bakery? I mean, everyone's does. Ree says yes. Okay, good. But they're still describing their what and their how, right? It's artisan breads and using the freshest ingredients. So here's another example how you might reword that ad. Feeding people is our passion. It nourishes our souls. We bake this into every handcrafted loaf of bread and pastry we serve to nourish the world. Can you taste the difference? I'm getting goosebumps just reading that, right?
It's more emotional. It's more going after how you feel about it instead of what you think about it.
Exactly. And then you can go in and then you can describe the how and the what, right, in the rest of the ad. But that is the compelling purpose. that gets the baker up at 3 a.m. in the morning because she or he is on a mission to feed the world. Yeah. So that's the difference between, and most ads that we see are all about our how and what, right? It's the new products, it's all these new features, but okay, so what? So what? Who cares? So let's go into the 8 steps. So the first step here is to find a partner. And Sinek's team really recommends that you choose a trusted colleague, not a spouse, not a significant other, not someone who knows all your stories, someone that you've shared all of these heartfelt stories with. So for me, I don't choose my husband, right? Because he knows most of my stories and I know most of his. And the problem there is that if you choose someone like that, they may have a tendency to include their own biases. They've interpreted your stories over the years, and as you tell them and retell them, then they may be interpreting what they think you ought to be feeling or what your response should have been at that time, right? So you want to find someone that you trust, who doesn't know your stories, who can be totally objective. Their job is to simply take notes and ask you deep, clarifying questions as you tell your stories. Their role, the first thing you want to do is share this link. There's a bit.ly link here. It'll be active in in the handouts that I give you, and have them watch Simon Sinek's TED Talk. You also want them to go to this bit.ly link, bit.ly/FYW resources, and that'll be in the handout. That's where Sinek has all of these resources. They can download a partner guide. I've downloaded it. It's really very detailed, and it will help them get ready to be your partner and listen to your stories, and then be able to provide some feedback. Their job, though, is simply take notes, not challenge anything that you share, ask questions, and write down the verbal and nonverbal cues they see. So the recommendation too is that you do this with someone in person. Sometimes that's not possible, that the person that you want to do this with is really someone that is not nearby, and so you can do it via Zoom, as long as you can show the verbal, you're on camera, right? We aren't sharing a screen like this, so you're both there on camera and they can see clearly what your emotions are and write those down. That's their job, is to just ask, okay, I see that there's a little tear showing. Why are you getting emotional? What about that particular experience you're sharing is bringing back? What is it that it's bringing back? What's that feeling? Those are the kinds of questions they're supposed to be asking. Their job is to really dig deep, because, and I'll just share that as I wrote up my 10 or 11 stories over the last few days, when I started, there were kind of surface stories, and that's what happens. You start because you write, okay, I remember this experience that happened and this is how I felt. But as you keep writing these stories, you'll find that the more impactful ones begin to come, because those stories are triggering other remembrances, other experiences, other events that happened that you'd kind of forgotten about. And you want to jot all of those down. Their role is really get you to share all of these feelings and then ask the follow-up questions. And the questions that they should be asking is not why did you feel like that, but how did that make you feel? What about that experience did you absolutely love or hate? And in the partner guide, which is why I highly recommend they do this, there's a whole series of questions to give them examples of how to phrase a question so that it forces you to think a little bit more deeply about that particular event that you're sharing, and get to those underlying questions. So here's your partner's role is, as you tell your stories, is really capture the themes. They're going to look for keywords that you state over and over again. They're going to look for some themes that are showing up in multiple stories, and their job is to capture the contribution that this event made, or you made on someone's life or other people's lives, or a contribution that the event made to people around you, or that person made on your life and their impact, right? So that's what we're looking for, is contribution and impact. And that's written in, when you get to writing your why statement, it's written in the to blank, the contribution, so that blank, the impact. And that's what's going to come out of this whole process of uncovering your themes and your feelings as you tell your stories. So here's Simon Sinek's why, according to his team. We are here to inspire people to do the things that inspire them, so that together, each of us can change our world for the better. So they're all about inspiring people. And that's why this, the books and the guide, the Finding Your Why, is available for people, because the whole purpose is, if we can inspire more people to identify their why and start with why, businesses will be better run, leaders will be better leaders, people will follow them. It's this domino effect, right? And so that's what his team is after. In the guide, your partner is there. It's great. It's got multiple sheets, I think 5 or 6 different pages of example sheets that your partner could use. You could just take a piece of paper, she could take a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle. On the left column are going to capture, your partner's going to capture the details and the context of your story. So the details being, such and such, you went to your grandma's house. This was a special day and time because something happened at grandma's house. You've been going every weekend for years, but this particular weekend, some event occurred that was impactful. And then on the right-hand side of that event, that story, they're going to write down the feelings and the significance, what they're seeing, excitement or anger or tears, whatever is that you're emoting as you're telling that story. They're going to jot that down. And then any words that you're using that could be themes, that's how they're going to take those notes. And they're going to do a page for every single story that you tell. Make sure I didn't go too far. Yeah, okay, I went too far here. So pick a time and place with your partner. Pick a quiet place, a private place. And the recommendation, as I said, is to do it in person, just because it's easier to see all the nonverbal cues. No distractions, turn off your phones, and plan that you're going to spend probably 3 hours, could be longer. So if you're doing it in a home office with somebody and you have family around, make sure that you've got a note on the door or something that says "do not disturb," because you want to make sure that it's a consecutive 3+ hours that you're spending together in doing this. You could do it, as I said, over Zoom, because we can see one another, but it's better if you can do it with somebody in person. And now, while your partner's getting prepared, this is where your job now is to gather all your stories. And as I said, you just start write stories, write them in as much detail as you can, and write about what happened, the impact it had on your life, and how it made you feel. Those are the 3 areas you want to be talking about. And these are experiences and people who shaped you, who had an impact on who you are today. You want to also look for the good and the bad examples, because, as they talk about, these are the peaks and valleys of your life, right? So you want to write down both good and bad. There are learnings from both of those events. And Sinek suggests that you draw a horizontal line on a sheet of paper. I recommend you write up your stories, maybe on a computer. Yeah, I did it in a Word document. So I had all these different stories, and then I put themes below that. Just because it's easier for me to type than it is to handwrite everything. But if you're a handwriting kind of person, write them all in a notebook somewhere. and then get another sheet of paper and draw a horizontal line across that middle. At the top, above the line, you want to put your top 2 or 3 positive stories that had the most impact on you and who you are right now. And at the bottom, you want to put the worst events, the worst, the bad stories, and you want to have the worst one at the very bottom. So at the end of that, you should have a sheet of paper that has maybe 3 positive stories with 1, 2, 3 at the very top above that line, and then maybe 2 or 3 not so great stories of they could be events and experiences that you never want to go through again, right? They just were, but they had an impact on who you are, and you made some unconscious, subconscious decisions having gone through that helped to shape you, and that's what you're trying to get at. And then I would recommend, you just jot down from the stories that you wrote in your notebook or on Word, you just, capture the essence of what that story was. A story about blah, blah, blah. And that's what goes on that horizontal sheet of paper. So you know which stories are the ones that you want to share. Then the next step is for you now share your stories with your partner. And this is where you're going to spend the 3 hours together. Circle the 3 that were the most impactful, the most important stories, and share those with your partner first before you share the other 2. You need to share at least 5, maybe 6, but not all 10 or 11 that you write. But 5 is kind of like a magic number for Sinek. So start with the 3 most impactful and then share the next 2, and be open and vulnerable, very specific and detailed. So again, when he says specific and detailed in the guide, maybe it's not in the guide, but it's in the story, the book, Finding Your Why. The details aren't, we went to grandma's house on Tuesday, X day, X time to go have, dinner or lunch or whatever. That is irrelevant. This Tuesday, I remember a Tuesday when we went to grandma's house for lunch and this specific thing happened. Somebody else was there, or an event took place, or whatever it was. That's the kind of detail that you want to put in, not the date, not the time, not that it was a regular occurrence, that it's really what was different about that particular time you went to grandma's house. And that's the story that you're going to talk about. And you are going back in time as you relive all of this, and the goal is to really connect with the emotions that are evoked as you go through this process, because that, as you get in touch with those emotions, you begin to recognize and maybe verbalize some experiences, some things, why you felt a certain way, how that particular person became a memorable person in your life. What was it about that individual that was so important to you as a role model or whatever? Okay. Step 6 is where now you're identifying the themes of at least 2 themes should be showing up in each of your stories. And Sinek recommends that during this step, it's your partner that takes the lead here, because it's that partner's job to write down these themes, these phrases, these words that keep showing up in the stories, and then circle those and track them back, tie them back to at least 2 of the stories that you've told. And it does evolve that way, because as I was writing up mine and writing down what I thought the themes were, by the time I got to the 10th story, I was going back and looking at the ones I wrote earlier, stories 1 and 2, and I'm going, well, no, it's actually, this is the theme that was showing up there. So I'm going, now I'm adding the theme that I had for story number 10, I'm adding it back to story number 2, because that was the actual theme that was showing up. And so that's the power of this, of going back and looking at these stories. Then you want to circle the one or two that seem to have had the biggest impact on who you are today. And those are what you're going to use to begin to write your why statement. When you're writing your why statement, you're going to write it separately from your partner. Your partner is going to write what they think is the why statement for you. And again, in this format, to blank, so that blank, to the contribution, so that the impact. That's what that format is. And you write it in that. They're going to write a statement. You're going to write a statement. And you may draft more than one or two. Take no more than 5 minutes is what they recommend, and then come back together and share the statements and adjust the statements. You might want to take some of the verbiage from what your partner wrote, because it seems to resonate with you. And don't worry about it being perfect. The whole purpose here is to get something down on paper that resonates with you, but it may still be a work in progress. I've been working on this, what's my purpose, and Timmy knows this because we've been talking about this. We've known each other for about 20 years or more, and I've been working on it this whole time, right? So this is just a matter it takes a long time to finally get to grips with what this whole real purpose is that drives you. Why am I here? What's different about me? What is it that drives me to do the kind of work I'm doing? So at this point, you just want to have something that you can begin to live with, right? Because now the final step is to really live with it and begin practicing it. You want to begin putting it into practice. Write it up on a wall, hang it there so you see it every day, repeat it to yourself every day, make revisions as you need to. Make it your headline in your LinkedIn profile. I did that with mine. I just changed that up. Find ways that you can begin to put it into practice, and then and share it with people. Share it with your colleagues, share it with your family, share it with friends, and see what kind of feedback you get from them. It has to be precise, it has to be purposeful, and it needs to be impactful. And the next step that Sinek's team recommends is that in this whole sharing process is you actually share it with a friend. And there's a friends exercise at that same Bitly resort. I didn't want to share that yet. There at this Bitly resources, there's a friends exercise. So I'm not going to go into that detail because we don't really have as much time for that. But there's a process you go through, and this is where you share this with a friend, and you maybe ask a friend, so why are we friends? What is it about me that you want to be friends with? What do I add to your life that makes us friends? And then you listen to what they have to say. This is going to be really hard for them, and it's going to be hard for you, but it'll help to really begin to resonate with you and figure out, okay, this is the impact I'm having on other people's lives, on someone else's life. And if I'm having that kind of impact, how can I translate that into my business? How do I take that impact and translate it further to having that similar impact on others, right? For Sinek, it's inspiring people, to inspire them to be better, right? So that friends exercise is my next step to start sharing that and getting to that basis, that basic foundation, and then just keep testing it and refining it until you get to what you want. Once you have the statement, I think this is something that you could potentially translate into a vision for your business. Because if you're lead, this is something, Laurel, you could work with leaders on, right? Of CEOs of companies who haven't maybe created a vision for their business, right? The mission is easy. The mission is what we do and how we do it. The vision is the difficult one, because that's that's overarching purpose that everybody says, I align with that cause. That's what I want to do. I believe in this company because that's where we're going. That's what we're headed towards. And it's the leader who has to demonstrate that and verbalize that and share that with the rest of the team so that they understand what their role is in driving that business forward. So if you get in touch with who you are and what your why is, then you can translate that with, I mean, it's going to take some time, but eventually translate that into what's the purpose for your business. And then, because that needs to be, it has to resonate with you as well on a very personal level. So this is the one that I finally came up with, because and I'll tell you what my themes are here, but I came up with to serve others in a way that leverages our combined talents so that we build a better world together. I'm all about servant leadership. I lead by example. I believe very strongly in, if I'm going to ask somebody to do something, then I'm going to do it right alongside them. I also believe very strongly in teamwork and team building, and that we're better together than we are separately, that each one of us has unique talents that we can bring to a project to work together and really accomplish something wonderful. And that's where this teamwork, combined talents, and then building a better world together. This is just giving me chills as I'm saying this. I'm all about new, right? My entire life has been about change and challenging the status quo and doing something new. Anytime someone said, this is how you do it, I go, why? Why do we always do it that way? Maybe there's a different way to do it. That's just my natural inclination. So this is my themes, as I've been saying here, are servant leadership and team building, challenging the status quo, and be working together. Those are what came up for me. Now they may change over time, but that's what I have come up with. Any questions, Timmy? You were saying something?
Yeah, so I got a little lost on why do the friends exercises right there. That just seems like a tangent. So could you talk more about how it's not a tangent?
It's because it's all about refining what your statement is. It's about sharing it with someone. If you just keep it in a vacuum and it's just you, then you aren't getting feedback from other people. And so sharing it with the friend and asking the friend, this is what I came up with as my why statement. And my question for you, friend, is why are we friends? What is it about me that has attracted you to maintain this friendship? Why? So what about me? Why do you want to be friends with me? What do I add to your life? It might help you. Their point is that this should help you better refine your why statement. And then if you can, you say, well, this is what I think I am contributing. Does that resonate with you? And they could go, no, they might say, well, yeah, no, but really what you bring as a friend is something else that you didn't even think about. So it's really to help you refine your why statement.
Okay.
Okay. Another tip, because I did this and it worked it was marvelous. I actually went to Google Gemini. Used to be Google Bard, it's now Google Gemini, Chat GPT, right? And I said, refine this statement and incorporate these 3 themes. And so Google Gemini came back and rewrote it. And then I rewrote it a little bit more and set it and gave it back to Gemini. And Gemini said, that's a great revision of your statement. It incorporates those 3 themes. But it was helpful because I kind of got stuck on the servant leadership And how do we combine our, and combining our talents and working together. I was stuck on the traditional words, team building, change agent, all of that, trying to incorporate those. So you want to keep it short and succinct so that you can remember it, and then you can say it to someone and they can go, I get it. I understand what you're saying. That's the purpose of this. Any other questions? Okay. Well, we are at the end. Thank you for being here. I've really appreciated your input, your questions, your comments. I hope this is helpful, gives you some food for thought. And going forward, if you've got questions, please, reach out to me. I'd love to chat with you further about it.